How's it going, Giants fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo, and today we're discussing Leonard Williams and the restructuring of his contract this morning, a reality that we've been waiting for. The Giants had negative $6 million going into today. They walk away with positive $5 million. And how did that happen? Well, they pushed money down the road. Thank you so much for these bloated contracts, these unfortunate circumstances that Joe Schoen is having to work through right now. And Leonard Williams restructuring his contract was always a reality. You know, it's like they were always going to be negative in cap space. We did not have much money to work with. Now they have to add a void year onto the end of his contract. So we're going to be paying him 2024, which is kind of what we're doing right now with Nate Solder. I think we're paying him $4 million to not be on the team, which honestly, I'd pay him more to not be on the team. That's how much I don't want him on the freaking Giants any longer. So this is kind of the situation we're in. Giants are finally positive in the cap space. We're going to discuss how this contract was changed, what it impacts down the road, how much money the Giants have next year after this change happened. But it's definitely interesting, something that I don't think Joe Schoen wanted to do, but unfortunately they needed the money. They just had to get over positive, and they didn't even make that many signings this year. It just happened to be that all of these kind of accumulated and added up, and they haven't cut Darius Slayton yet, and he could even be out. He took a leave of absence today. I think it was a excused missed practice, but we'll see how kind of what happens there. Same thing happened with Blake Martinez last week, and then bam, he was released. So maybe he takes a day off, and then suddenly bam, they're talking about it, discussing, mutually part ways. Darius Slayton ends up leaving, going elsewhere to find an opportunity. So maybe that happens. Maybe it's just a personal thing. He needed a day off. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll get you guys the updated information, obviously, when we knew more. But Anthony, before we dive into Leonard Williams, how they changed this contract today to open up a bit more salary cap flexibility. How do you do today, my friend?
I'm doing great, and this is a move that the Giants were dreading to make. They did not want to have to do this, but of course, they had no other choice. I mean, contract restructures are something that Joe Schoen has said he doesn't like to do. They had to do one for Blake Martinez back in the spring. Cut him anyway. Now they have to make one for Leonard Williams because the Giants, once again, were $6 million over the salary cap space. They were out of money and then some. They were indebted, so they had to make some sort of a move. A contract restructure was non-negotiable. It was inevitable. They had to do it out of necessity, which is super unfortunate because it does have serious cap implications, not only for this season, but for the upcoming seasons. This is, maybe they free up some cap space right now. Sure, they've got a little extra wiggle room right here, so maybe they can go out there, get some veteran in the free agency pool that they like, or just save the money for the regular season, whatever they want to do. But next year, they've lost a lot of salary cap space because of this move. And that's really where this comes into play and where this gets kind of, frustrating when you're standing as the GM, Joe Schoen, and you're saying, hey, look, I had the Giants in a decent salary cap situation a couple months ago, but this was just inevitable. I didn't want to have to do this, but I had to. And that's what really sucks. And like you said, thanks, Dave Gettleman, for leaving us with such a mess. I mean, Joe Schoen has just had to pick up the pieces of a whole lot of trash across a beach, basically. This is terrible mess that he has to clean up. But I will commend Joe Schoen. I think he's done a really great job cleaning it up, done the best he can. This is the first year of a rebuild. If you take a look at the future health salary cap numbers for the future, the Giants are pretty healthy with their salary cap. This does hurt them a little bit, but relatively speaking, the Giants have a very healthy salary cap over the next few years, and that's strictly because of the work that Joe Schoen did this offseason. Quickly speaking on the Darius Slayton point that you made as well, I think that's really interesting because it does remind me of the Blake Martinez thing. Absent from practice for a day, and then he's cut. I have a feeling we're going to be getting some bad news on Darius Slayton in the coming days. I mean, really, if I had to make my assumptions and speculate on the matter, I think that the writing is on the wall for Darius Slayton. He's kind of even tweeted about it a little bit, and he's also kind of mentioned in interviews as well that he's not really sure if he expects to be here. I think at this point, he's probably expecting not to be here, and I'm not expecting Darius Slayton to be a member of the Giants come week 1, which is only a short 5 days away. So I think that there's going to be a move made very soon for Darius Slayton. But of course, we'll keep you all updated. We'll see.
That's a fact. And you know what? Okay. Like you mentioned, Joe Schoen's had to pick up the pieces. He's had to clear off a rather dirty beach. Have you ever been to Jones Beach? He's basically at Jones Beach picking up trash. And this is just the unfortunate reality of the New York Giants right now. So looking forward, the Giants have a better salary situation in the future. And to give you some insight into what they did with Leonard Williams' deal, they had negative $6.7 million per over the cap going into this morning. They actually converted $17.88 million into a signing bonus from Leonard Williams' contract. They opened up about $12 million in salary space with this move, but it does add a $6 million cap hit to the 2024 season. So that's a little bit unfortunate. It also reduces their ability to cut him next year and how much money they actually get to save in that instance. So right now, the Giants sit with $5.15 million in available cap space. They're positive. If they cut Darius Slayton, or if they whatever they do with him, that'll clear about $2.5 million. Then another player fills that role, probably at the veteran minimum. So you're probably saving about 1.5, maybe 2 mil, a little bit less than 2 million. So maybe you're sitting around $7 million in available cap space if Darius Slayton ends up parting ways with the Giants as well. That's not enough to really do much, right? Like you're really holding on to that cash for one reason. One, or actually two reasons. Two, one of them is that you get to kind of roll that cap space into next year if you're positive. And two, you might have injuries that arise. You need to supplement. Maybe you go out and get a Jimmy Smith that's on a cheap veteran contract to fill in. You know, the Giants just brought in Fabian Moreau. We talked about him yesterday. He's kind of burnt toast, but at least he can be a serviceable guy. He's an experienced corner at the very least. But, you know, looking at the cap space for next year in 2023, the Giants have $55.6 million in available cap space. The problem is, prior to today, if they cut Leonard Williams, they would have saved $18 million in salary cap, which is a substantial amount. That's enough to sign a premier edge rusher. That's enough to sign probably a premier tackle, or at least not a premier tackle, but a high-end tackle, maybe just a tier 2. You know, you could sign 2 pretty damn good guards. We signed Mark Lewinsky to a 3-year, $18.1 million deal. So you look at, you know, you could go out there and get 2 serviceable guards. You go there and starting center and a starting guard for that money, and probably then some. So, you know, that's a lot of money you're losing out on. But then, you know, that drops to obviously $12 million next year. So the $6 million void essentially gets put over into the 2024 season. If the Giants were to cut Leonard Williams in 2023, you're talking about you're eating $20.2 million in dead money, and you're only saving $12 million in cap space. So with the $55.6 million, you add 12 to it, you're looking at $67.6 million in available cap. Then you have to make decisions on Daniel Jones. Do you let him walk? If you don't let him walk, maybe he's making $20 million. Maybe he's franchise tag. Maybe it's 22, 23. I don't exactly know the number. But that's that's almost half of your cap space. Immediately it's gone, because then you have the $10 million you also have to allocate toward the draft picks. And if you're going to go out and get a rookie quarterback, or if you're going to go out and you know, have all your draft picks, you're not trading up for them, you have to have a pretty nice chunk of change waiting for that. So, you know, 2024 obviously offers a little bit more in terms of salary help and support. But the Giants definitely are not in the best of shapes. I would not expect them to go out and have a spending spree next season, but I do think they could look at it like the Jets, right? If there's any team I like to refer to as having gone through a successful process in terms of year 1 and year 2 of rebuild, I actually really like the Jets rebuild right now. They're doing it the right way. If Zach Wilson pans out, they're going to have a really good team. You look at what they did this offseason. They brought in DJ Reed at cornerback. They brought in Tyler Conklin. They brought in Laken Tomlinson at guard. They brought in Jordan Whitehead, a starting safety. None of them were blockbuster deals. None of them are breaking the bank, but they're all serviceable, bona fide starters. And I think they can all make a significant impact on that squad and help both sides of the ball. That's what I'd like the Giants to do next year. I don't want them to go out and sign a big money cornerback, a big money tackle. They obviously don't need that, or a big money anything. They can go out and get serviceable players and utilize their scouting department, utilize Joe Schoen and that knowledge to actually go out. You look at the Buffalo Bills and what Joe Schoen did in Buffalo. They didn't go out and spend egregiously on players. They brought really one high-priced player, and that was Stephon Diggs. They traded for him, and then they paid him. He's the only guy. Like Tre'Davious White, I think, was a draft pick. You know, you look at Von Miller. They just signed him. He's later. He's a veteran, so they're not paying him top dollar anymore. You know, nobody on that team is earning big money. Aside, you know, I guess Jordan Poyer got a second deal, but really Stephon Diggs is the only one. All of the rest of them, really well done free agent acquisitions that filled specific roles and were disciplined, a great mentally processing. You know, I heard Tom Brady say this morning, you know, what separates good from great, like I guess good from bad players. He said sometimes coaches and scouts get too focused on the physical aspects of players and not their mental processing abilities. You know, that's a big con about Daniel Jones. A lot of people, he's got the physical nature. He's got the physical tools. Problem is he can't get through his progressions adequately. He can't actually conquer the mental aspect of the game. And I think that's been his biggest downfall. He has the arm. He's got the legs. He's got the physical traits. I just think sometimes he's a little bit slow with his football IQ and actually processing everything that's happening in live action. That's where Tom Brady makes everybody look stupid. He is so freaking quick to identify things and attack coverages and attack weaknesses. He knows what's coming, and he's really good at finding out information pre-snap. That's what Daniel Jones is lacking, in my opinion. And I think that ultimately that might be his downfall. Hopefully, you know, he does prove us all wrong, or at least proves anyone that doubts him wrong. We're hoping for that. But Anthony, you know, when you're looking at the situation salary-wise and what, you know, Joe Schoen, the Buffalo Bills did previously, I would probably say they're not going to go egregiously spending on players next season or the next couple of years. I think they try to retain some of their own guys that they've drafted, and they probably use that money more strategically to find guys who can plug holes and fit a specific mold they're trying to kind of strategize around.
Yeah, I think that is the right way to do a rebuild, and I think that's the route that the Giants are going to take here. If you take a look at the Buffalo Bills, no, they never were big spenders on free agency during the Brandon Beane and Joe Schoen era, and I don't expect the Giants to be big spenders on free agency next season. I think, especially taking a look at the quarterback position, you really shouldn't be a big spender in free agency unless you're certain about what you have at quarterback, because if you're not certain about what you have at quarterback, then you're going to want to draft somebody, and in order to draft somebody, you're going to need a high draft pick or at least a lot of draft capital. And if you tie up all of your money into free agents, then you're going to have a really tough time, first of all, getting that high draft pick, because the free agents that you sign are going to get you a bunch of cheap wins and make you a mid-first round draft pick, which then makes it harder to get that quarterback. And then, of course, you also have really big contracts that are not flexible and really difficult to trade, which again, you lose out on capital to trade for a quarterback. So for the Giants, they do need to protect themselves by not spending a lot of money in free agency. It's very important going down the road that they don't do what Dave Gettleman did. Now, Dave Gettleman had his confirmation bias after watching Daniel Jones throw 25 touchdowns in his rookie season and said, you know what, this guy's the future. I'm right. Everybody's wrong. Time to go spend a lot of money. And then he spent a lot of money and he made some really egregious trades like the one of Odell Beckham. I mean, sure, that probably panned out in a better way, but still, the money spending did not pan out. Most of those guys are gone or being restructured or whatever. So those big contracts that he gave out have really come back to hurt the Giants and given them a very small amount of flexibility. I do believe that the Giants are probably trying to transition into that new quarterback era. I think they're hoping that Daniel Jones pans out, hoping that Brian Dable can get the most out of him. But maybe they're also just trying to get the most out of Daniel Jones to make him a trade piece. You never know. The Giants are in a really flexible position here, which is super good for them because next year they are going to have a lot of money to spend, but they need to spend wisely. You want a rollover cap. You want to save money. You want to keep insurance funds. I mean, maybe the Giants do go out there and they make a trade for a receiver similar to the one that the Bills made for Stephon Diggs. Maybe they get that X factor on the offense for Daniel Jones or whoever the next quarterback might be. But primarily speaking, how you mentioned the Jets have been doing it, just signing veterans and serviceable starters, that's more in line with what the Giants are currently doing. If you take a look at their free agency pool, the free agency class from this offseason, Mark Lewinsky really stood out as the main big signing. Now, that's not really a main big signing. Mark Lewinsky, an average guard who's just been a serviceable starter throughout his career. But that's exactly what, Alex, you're saying, is that the Giants need to start just signing guys that they know can be good starters. Nothing flashy, nothing extreme. Leave that to the scouting department. Joe Schoen is an excellent scout, and he brought some excellent scouts over to the Giants with him. I know that the Giants can go out there and find some really solid talent in the drafts. I mean, this year's draft class looked excellent. That's how I feel, at least. I think both of those first-round picks were phenomenal. The second-round pick, I doubted, but so far, Wan'Dale Robinson has stood out at every single practice, and he's looked like he could be an X factor in the Giants' offense. Then some of those mid-round picks. Micah McFadden's been impressive. Darian Beavers was impressive before he got injured. Dane Belton was impressive in practice before he got injured. So this has been a pretty impressive draft class so far. I know it's really early to tell. They haven't even played their first regular season games yet, these guys, but just relatively speaking, the way that Joe Schoen has gone about constructing this roster this offseason, it does fall more in line with what a team rebuilding would do, comparatively speaking to what Dave Gettleman did, because the Giants were in the middle of a rebuild. But Dave Gettleman claimed you can win and rebuild at the same time. That's that famous quote that he gets shit on for every single day, rightfully so. You can't win and rebuild. You have to rebuild the right way. No flashy big contract signings like a Leonard Williams or a Blake Martinez while you're trying to rebuild. That's not rebuilding. Rebuilding is getting those serviceable guys while also investing into draft capital and making solid, well-scouted draft picks. That's how you build for the future. And we've seen other teams in our division even do that. I know the Dallas Cowboys, they haven't won a Super Bowl in a very long time, praise God. But for a very long time, they had the best offensive line in football. And all of those guys were homegrown drafted talents because Dallas really wasn't big spenders in free agency for a long time. They would just go out there and make good draft picks. And that's something that the Giants need to replicate as well. All the teams in the NFL. I mean, the Cowboys were just one example because I know that they built that offensive line from the ground up. But you can use so many teams as an example where they became successful and perennial playoff contenders because of their draft picks. I don't know any team that's gone out there, spent a lot of money in free agency, and turned themselves into perennial playoff contenders. You do that through the draft. You do not become a perennial playoff contender through big splash signings in free agency. That's really just the way that it is. In the NFL, you have to draft right. You have to invest your assets into draft capital and do some good scouting and get some good young talent in order to build for the future. And I do think that's the direction the Giants are going. This move might make it a little bit more difficult for the Giants to sign free agents next offseason, but I don't think that's their main focus. That's not their point of emphasis. Their point of emphasis is to set themselves up for a really solid draft class.
That's exactly right. I think that, you kind of hit on the head in the sense that we cannot afford to be egregiously spending on free agents anymore to cover up draft mishaps. Now, unfortunately, McKethan and Darian Beavers tore ACLs this year. Both, especially Beavers, were projected to play pretty significant roles. And I think Beavers probably would have been starting. I think Blake Martinez would have been cut anyway, and Beavers would have been starting alongside Tate Crowder. Now you have Austin Calitro and Micah McFadden likely taking those snaps. So, it's interesting. We'll see what happens. I definitely think that, Joe Schoen's going to be a little more strategical in the way that he operates, specifically around spending money. I don't think he's going to be overspending and then, locking down the salary cap for years and restructuring and pushing it down the road and pushing it down the road and pushing it down the road, because eventually it comes due. Whether you like it or not, it comes due. And the Giants are paying for that right now because they're trying to clear some of these players off the books. And if you spend like that and it doesn't work out, you're stuck with them. What happens if you fire a defensive coordinator and you bring in a guy like Wink, and then suddenly your defense is entirely different? James Bradbury's on a big deal and you can't figure out what to do with him because, he doesn't fit your scheme anymore. Like, I think building through the draft, developing these guys the right way, that's the way to do it. That's the way the Giants are trying to strategize. And I think that's what's indicative of a first-year rebuild. This is what a rebuild is supposed to look like. And I'm happy that they're finally going through the process. Now, and here's the thing, right? I think the Giants are going to look like a better team this year, despite the fact that they don't have as much talent on the roster, right? I don't think they have as much talent as they did in previous years. They don't have Jabril. They don't have Peppers. They don't have Logan Ryan. They don't really just don't have that many players that really stand out on paper, right? And in past, we had like false hope, like, oh, wow, look at all these great players on the roster. They can really do some good things. This year, it's like, who the hell is playing cornerback for us? Who is playing linebacker? Who's playing tight end? There's not that much talent on this roster, but I will say this. Look at the Patriots. Go look at the Patriots roster over the past decade. They've had a lot of positions that didn't have a lot of talent, but their coaching staff is so good. They got so much more value out of them. So I think that we're going to see a better team this year. But even though there's less talent, because discipline, because mental processing, because execution is way more important sometimes than just the physical nature and the names and just big money spending and free agent acquisitions. Sometimes coaching is the biggest catalyst for success. And that's kind of what we hope to see. But this kind of got a little bit off topic, but I'm happy we discussed it. Leonard Williams' contract definitely opens up a little bit money now, but definitely hurts us a little bit down the road. Nonetheless, I do trust Joe Schoen and what he's doing. He's doing what's necessary to help this team succeed and build the right way. So I am happy about that, guys. But would always love to hear your opinions below and perspectives in the YouTube comments, my friends. Really appreciate that as always. Make sure to like and subscribe. Anthony, got your Bronchiosaurus. I cannot remember what this dinosaur's name is called. Bronchiosaurus? Is that what they said it was?
Beats me. I have no idea. I don't know. Let us know in the comment section if you made it this far in the video. What kind of dinosaur is this? I just know it really bothers Alex when I put it up here. So I like to.
Well, because I instantly try to figure out what it's called. It's like, so if you're listening to this, it's basically a long green dinosaur, but it has scales sticking out at the top of its back. And it goes along the entire body right now. And it's biting Anthony's ear. I think it's a Bronchiosaurus. It's not a Triceratops. I said last time. It's a rubber Bronchiosaurus of sorts. I don't know where you acquired this said Bronchiosaurus, but he has now appeared in this video many a different time. Hopefully a good luck charm. This could be our good luck Bronchiosaurus if the Giants actually start performing well. So we'll keep him around. We got to name him, right?
At the first pregame video, we'll name him. The first pregame live stream, we'll name the Bronchiosaurus. And if the Giants win, we'll keep him around. But if they lose, I'll shun him back to the corner of my desk and we'll find a new good luck charm.
Or we could do it like a hangman thing. You just cut off a leg every time they lose or something until he's just totally gone.
He doesn't deserve that. That's kind of messed up.
Well, we have to think of an
That's
interesting
torturous.
name.
Wait, that was kind of dark, bro. You've been
That
watching
was
too
kind
much
of
Game
dark.
of Thrones, House
No,
of Dragons.
I've been watching too much Giants lately.
Yeah.
That'll do it to you. I mean, I don't know. We have to figure out a good name for him. I mean, I guess you could
I don't
go
know.
something Giants related. Well, guys, if you're this far in the video, let us know if you have any ideas for our good luck Bronchiosaurus we have to name. Something Giants relevant. Something Giants relevant. Good.
Sounds good.
Yeah. He also he's capable of I guess I don't know. He's pretty good balance, honestly.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this episode of Fireside Giants. Make sure to like and subscribe as always, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.